Hey everybody, this is Brogi Naric back again with another review, and today I'm talking about Glass, directed by M. Night Shyamalan, and this is the continuation of the Unbreakable universe. If you don't know, it ties in with the movie Unbreakable and Split. I've seen Unbreakable probably about 2, 3 months ago, and I haven't seen Split, but I would suggest you watch both movies before you see this because you will be a little confused by a lot of things, or at least watch Unbreakable and just read up about Split. That's what I did, and I didn't feel too lost without knowing anything. But this movie did make me want to see Split more because I have some questions about certain things. But this movie has been like about 20 years in the making, and it was like a pseudo. It was a surprise that it was connected to Split because that wasn't originally part of the plan to the public, but it was M. Night's plan the whole time. And I was excited to see this movie, even though I hadn't seen the other two beforehand, because it looked really good and it could be interesting. And I have to say, this movie looks really good and it's really interesting. I was a little worried because there was, a lot of the critical reviews before this were downing on the movie or very middle in the movie. But after seeing it, I have to say I was surprised and I really enjoyed this movie. I was expecting to maybe not like it that much, but I really enjoyed this movie. It's a good movie. I think it's worth checking out, especially if you like the other two movies. So the movie focuses on David. It starts off with David Dunn, played by Bruce Willis, who is he's now working. He runs a security business, a private private security business with his son. They sell cameras and things like that, and over the years he's been superheroing. He's been fighting. He's been tracking down people, touching them and figuring out who he should take down. He's become an internet sensation. He's known. He's got various nicknames, but the main one they use is the Overseer. And he tracks down these girls who have gone missing. I believe, similar to what happened in the Split movie. They've been kidnapped by Kevin Crumb, aka the Horde, aka the Beast, played by James McAvoy. He's this weird guy with these multiple personalities, and his most dominant personality is the Beast, which is like this amalgam. He worked at the zoo, and it's like a amalgam of all these various different animals, and he does terrible things. I don't know exactly what the crime he does, but I have some guesses. And so they get into a fight. Eventually, they get captured, and they're taken to this insane asylum called Raven Hill Memorial Hospital, which is sort of like Arkham Asylum in a way, if you think about it that way. It's not as bad as Arkham Asylum, but it's essentially Arkham Asylum in this movie. And they're met by Sarah Paulson's character, Dr. Ellie Staple. And she's trying to convince them that they're all insane. Well, not insane, but they suffer from delusions of grandeur. And by them also, before I get there, there's another patient who's been there for the past 20 years. His name is Elijah Price, aka Mr. Glass, who was played by Samuel Jackson, who was the main surprise, he was the main antagonist in Unbreakable, and he's been there under sedation and kind of left alone for these years. But she's now brought these three together, and she's trying to discover why they have these delusions of grandeur. Why do they believe they have superpowers, and or are superheroes, as they say? They don't shy away from this movie. Is very upfront about the tropes it's talking about, which is what I really enjoy about this movie. That's what Unbreakable did in a different way, where it was evoking the tropes of comics, the hero and the villain, being opposite. Sometimes the hero and the villains are friends before they become adversaries, stuff like that. Surprise endings, and this is the monologue. This is the villain's monologue. This is the denouement. Hero has to track down. Hero has a costume. Hero discovers his powers, stuff like that. And this movie does that too. It's even more on the nose, and it's a little more. It's definitely a more action-packed movie than compared to Unbreakable, which I enjoy and greatly appreciate it, because Unbreakable is good, but it's a lot of scenes of people talking, looking, and it's much slower movie, and there's certain elements about it I don't like, and there's some elements in this I don't like. As a whole, I really enjoyed this film. What? So yeah, the end. So most of the movie, the beginning of the movie is David and Kevin, which is really good. Then there's a good middle part of the movie where they're just in the asylum and they're talking about their problems, which could sound boring, and it might be boring for some, but for me it was interesting because these three characters are cool. And there's what Kevin, who I'm not. James McAvoy kills it in this movie with his different characters and different personalities. Is really fun, very interesting, and trying to remember the name of the character that goes with the voice that he does, and seeing the personality changes. Interesting stuff. And eventually it ends into a big climax and a huge twist, which I can't get too much into. The acting is solid in this. Sarah Paulson's great. Everybody's great. Even the side characters. David Dunn's son comes back. It's the same actor that played him in the first movie, Joseph Dunn. He was good. He was a lot better in this than he was a child actor in the first one. I didn't think he was all that great, but he's a good character. You have Casey Cook, played by Anya Taylor-Joy, who was one of the victims in Split that survived. And I want to see Split because they have this. Her and Kevin have this weird, like, victim predator relationship, but they also have a weird friendship because she, even though I guess he killed her friends and she got away, she still cares about him in a way. Like, I guess she understands the tragedy of his life. And then you also have Elijah Price's mother, Mrs. Price, who comes back, and they're like the three side characters that play heavily in the outcome of this movie. So I think if you can get through the middle part, I think it's really the ending, like the big final twist that's gonna make people either like this movie or hate this movie. And I would have to say I didn't see that twist coming, but it was really cool. I think if you're a fan of comic books, I think you should be adjusted to this, or you should be able to accept something like this, because it goes in a crazy direction, which I was fine with because, like I said, I'm used to the comic books. So Glass is like, because it's very grounded in how it portrays superpowers, but it evokes a lot of superhero tropes. You can tell M. Night is a big comic book fan, even with Unbreakable, but even more so with this one, where it's very on the nose with some of the tropes, and it plays into the story, which I really appreciated. And like Glass is like, if Christopher Nolan, because it keeps it grounded. It's like if Christopher Nolan directed a superhero movie, but he didn't hate superheroes. Because sometimes Christopher Nolan, he takes the fantastical out of it and kind of brings it grounded. As for this one, makes it grounded, but adds the fantastic part to it, but then isn't embarrassed or ashamed of doing that. And I really respect that. And that's also why I like Mr. Glass, because he's just a big nerd, but he's also fucking evil. Like I said, the special effects is good. Some of the ways it's shot, I don't know if the cinematography was better in Unbreakable, but I like certain shots that he did in this film. And once again, the acting was great. I'm kind of struggling. I think I like this movie more than Unbreakable, which I might be blasphemy or whatever, but because it cuts out certain things that I didn't care about in Unbreakable and adds in newer things. And then like I said, the comic book tropes and the action, it's just really good. And it's tough. It's between a B- and an A+. It's in that range, like a 9. Yeah, I give it a 9. I give it a 9 out of 10. Yeah, I give it a 9 out of 10. I really was blown away by this, this movie might be the end of a trilogy, but it really made me eager to see more. That's really all I'm going to get into in the non-spoilers, so stick around and we're going to get into spoilers. All right, let's get into spoilers. So the stuff with David Dunn, like the world he's living in, where he's the Green Guardian, the Tiptoe Man, the Floats, and more commonly known as the Overseer, and he's like a mystery. People don't know if he exists. Well, they know he exists because they got photos, but like, is he really real? Is he not? I like that stuff. I like the idea of him and his son, him and his son have a better relationship, because his son was a weirdo in the first movie. Well, like, there's a moment where he actually tries to shoot him because he's so fucking crazy, but he's all in on the whole superhero thing. And so now they're just like a son and father superhero team, which was really cool. and he's helping him keep track of certain crimes, and he's also trying to find the girls that are missing. And he conveniently bumps into into Kevin, which then leads to him saving the kids, which was really good. And that was a good action sequence. I wish it was brighter so you could see it better, but it's a dark factory, so that was fine. And that little fight where the Beast versus the Overseer was really cool. And then after that, they get arrested, they get caught by the police, and they meet the lady, Sarah Paulson's character, who she's out of nowhere. She's been researching this superhero phenomenon for years, or supposed superhero phenomenon for years. And she has this light device where she can flash at Kevin that can immediately force his personalities to change, which they have great fun with that, where there's a scene where she's doing it, and like every time he hits with another one, it's another voice. And there's like 27 different personalities. And so they're hanging out, and there's a good portion of like I said, the middle close to the end part of the movie. It's just them stuck in the asylum, her doing her different tactics with trying to convince them that they're not superpowered. Like David's in a room with these water pumps that will, if he gets out of control, they'll spray a bunch of water in the room, which, if you don't know, water is his weakness. And it's his weakness in terms of he can't swim, and if he gets water inside of him, it's much easier for him to choke, and much easier for him to drown. So he can't float, he can't swim. That water is his weakness in that way. And then Elijah Price, Mr. Glasses, he's been there since the end of the movie because he was a villain. He was a terrorist. He was, blowing up places, setting places on fire. He's been heavily sedated because he's too smart. He's so smart. If you don't sedate him, he can easily break out of there if he wanted to, and he almost did, as they mentioned. But like, they've been keeping him heavily sedated, and so there's different character moments with everyone. Like, the mom comes in to see him, the son comes in to see David, and the girl Casey, she comes in to see Kevin, which I'm interested why she was so caring for him. I guess I think she was abused. I'm not sure, because they mentioned the thing about her uncle. He did something to her. I don't know exactly what it was. She's raised by foster parents. She's raised, so she's got something going on that I'm not familiar with, but I'm intrigued to learn more about. And so eventually, once Elijah Price realizes that the other two are there, his friend David Dunn is there, and then he's like, oh, there's this other kid who's supposedly he has superpowers. That's when he starts working everybody in the hospital. He switches out his medicine. He's pretending to be dumb, but like, he's secretly breaking out and keeping tabs on everything, because they mentioned there's a whole new security system. There's cameras all over the place, just to make sure if you try to break out, or if anyone tries to break out, we can keep tabs on you, which is one of my problems with the movie, is because they mention all of this security, but then there's a point at the movie where the security is like overnight. There's no security because Elijah Price is breaking out of his room. He's in a wheelchair. He wheels to Kevin's room, and he have a conversation with him. He wheels to David Dunn's room and has a conversation with him. And it's not until he wants to be caught on camera is when he's caught on camera, which plays into his plan, because Elijah is super smart. He outsmarts everybody in this movie. He is a threat. He's like Lex Luthor, but he's in a wheelchair. He's kind of like I would combine him. He's Lex Luthor and Magneto, but in a wheelchair. He can't physically do anything, but he's so smart he can outsmart people. He's like 12 steps ahead of everyone. And so his plan is, once he sees them, he wants to break them out, and he wants to get the Beast unleashed. There's this new unveiling of a building called the Soccer Tower, which is not a real building in Philadelphia, but apparently it's a reference to Nakatomi Plaza from Die Hard, Bruce Willis movie. And it's this big unveiling, and he's like, I'm going to have the Beast go there, and he's going to attack people, and I want you, David, to break free and stop him, and you guys can have this ultimate fight in front of all these, in this audience of people, but also expose the world to us superpowered people. And David, he's been he's kind of like in the first movie. He accepted his powers, but then being with this woman, she provides all this evidence about maybe their powers don't exist, which was really good stuff. Where she's like, well, because the Beast, Patricia, who's like one of the personalities, she believes in the Beast, and she's like, well, he was shot and he was alive. He'd been to bars. How do you explain that? And she's like, well, the bars were very old, and I could bend them with enough pressure and a wrench. The shotgun that shot you, it was in a damp room, so the shells weren't that effective. Same thing with David, where she's like, you saw this weird kid walking down the street. You could see the brick dirt on his hand. Maybe that led you to believe that he was weird and he was hiding the girls in the factory. So it was certain things she was dropping that made them question themselves. And so, but eventually they break free. The villains team up. Mr. Glass and the Horde and the Beast team up, and they sneak out of the basically Arkham Asylum. And they're going to be on their way to the building to cause the problem. David has to break out, gets his costume, because they get their clothes, or at least Mr. Glass gets his suit back, and David gets his rain poncho. And it's this awesome fight in the parking lot, which was really cool, because the Beast, like I said, is a wild animal. He flips over a police car with some people in it. He attacks some guys. He's just beating the hell out of like 3 guys at once. There's the awesome scene with the riot police are there, and David Dunn pushes one group into a container and bends the bar to lock them back, and then the Beast, he like beats the hell out of he beats the hell out of one of them, and he like starts to eat one of them. And of course, conveniently, before the fight happens, the 3 main side characters, the girl, David's son, and Elijah's mom, happen to show up at the same time as Sarah Paulson's character. And they're just like, we don't know what the hell to do. And so it's a great big fight. There's this water pump there. The Beast throws... Oh, whoa. I forgot. Okay, so they're having this big fight. And then the son, he's been researching, and everything plays on comic book tropes. So he does some information on... Kevin's backstory, which Kevin was raised by his 2 parents. His mom was abusive. His dad left to go find a doctor that can help get some treatment for his son and for his wife, but he ended up dying. He never came back. So the son, in the middle of the fight, when they're in the middle, when the Beast was about to go back to kill David, the overseer, David's son comes in. He's like, wait, don't fall for Mr. Glass. He's lying to you. That's something he's not telling you. And he's like, in every comic book, he brings up the trope, like, when the villains team up, sometimes one villain is keeping a secret from the other villain. And Mr. Glass is like, oh, you're not supposed to tell him that right now. And so Kevin is kind of like, what's going on? And David's son reveals that when the train exploded in the first movie back in, I think it was like 99, 2000, the movie happened. There was a bunch of people dying on the train, but David was the only one who survived. But it turns out that Kevin's father was also on that train. That's why he never came back, because he died. So basically, Elijah that day didn't create one superpower person. He eventually created 2. It just took years later. It took 19 years later for Kevin to develop his powers. So Elijah was even more proud of himself. He's like, I created David and I created the Beast, essentially. So now the Beast is pissed off, because he's like, if that wouldn't have happened, I wouldn't have had to create the Beast or all these multiple personalities. Kevin would be normal. So the Beast reacts, and he like crushes the crap out of Mr. Glass's shoulder, because Mr. Glass has a brittle body. So he does that, and then he like punches him, which like wrecks him, because he's super strong, and he's punching the guy made of like tissue paper. So he's about to kill Elijah, and then David Dunn's like, hey, what about that whole kneel before me thing? Let's get back to this fight, which is a great line, because it plays into the whole kneel before Zod line. David Dunn's like Superman, and I would think the Beast is almost like a Bizarro type, and like Lex Luthor is controlling them, manipulating them to fight each other. Like, this movie is on some deep levels, and I really enjoy that. And so they get into their fight, and shit, what happened after that? They get back into their fight. Yeah, okay, yeah. They get into their fight, and that's when he throws him into the water tank, and then that's David's weakness, and he eventually breaks it back open so they'll fall out. And in that time, they're coughing up water, and the Beast is like, screw this, I'm out. So he's about to leave, and the horde is like, this is like, some parts of the horde are happy because they're like, yeah, the Beast is powerful. Others are rebelling, and so before he leaves, the girl, she grabs him, and it's kind of like also like the Hulk, where the Hulk is a rage monster, but if you bring Betty Ross there, she can calm him, and that's kind of what she is to Kevin, to the Beast. So she calms him down, and like he brings out the real Kevin, and they have their moment, and they're talking. Then you see Elijah Price is on the ground talking to his mother, and she's like, "You're so smart, and it's interesting, but you've did you really plan for this to go like this, for you to die like this?" And he says something, I can't remember what he says, but he's like, "Oh, there's more to this." And so David is there choking on the ground, and some police people roll up, and they pick up David, and there's this pothole that's filled with water. So it's a pretty deep pothole, and it's filled with water. So it's like a little pool of water. They start waterboarding him in this puddle because that's his weakness. And while the girl is talking to Kevin, a sniper, you see the light shoots up and shoots him in the stomach. Yeah, that's the one. That's what happens first. He gets shot, and then the cops come and they start drowning David. So you notice the sniper, he has this tattoo on his wrist. The cops that start drowning David also have this tattoo on their wrists. It's a little 3-leaf clover. And so David has the ability, when he touches people, he can see if they've done bad things, and based on that, he decides to track them down and stop them. So as he's getting waterboarded, Sarah Paulson is like, she's like, "David, grab my hand." So David touches her, and it sends this flashback, and you see she's at this restaurant, and everybody's at the restaurant, and they're sitting there eating and chilling, and I think a couple leaves the restaurant. And as soon as the couple leaves the restaurant, everyone gets dead quiet, and they turn around and they look at this one guy. This one guy stands up. He's like, "Okay, they're gone." And you realize, and you're like, what the hell is that? And so you find out that Sarah Paulson was sent to this, her research of trying to figure out, do people have superpowers or not, is her job. And she works for this, I don't know, secret society, secret agency that goes around and keeps the knowledge of superpowered people just to be fiction. Because Elijah's right, superpowered people do exist in this world, but there's this group that goes around trying to either eliminating those people or convincing those people that they don't have superpowers. And that was what her job was. She was trying to convince them, but things got out of hand, so she had, call in the big guns, and they had to kill them. And that was like, whoa. That was a big shock. It's like, wait, this whole time that, no, and she says they've been around for 10,000 years. So this stuff has been going on for a while. She wanted to, that was a thing I forgot. She wanted to lobotomize Mr. Glass, but he outsmarted her. When he was rolling around that night, he switched out the device in the laser, so it didn't work. They just had footage of him rolling around like an idiot, but that's what he wanted them to see. And so the lobotomy didn't work, so he was still smart. And so now he's dead, Kevin's dead, and now David's dead because they've choked him out. So it's like, we tried to keep you guys, contained. It didn't work, so we had to eliminate you. So they all die, and Sarah Paulson is kind of like, well, I've done my job. I gotta, move on. I wish, she's at a restaurant, and again, some people leave, and then everybody gets quiet. And then they look at her, and she's like, "My job is done. You shouldn't have to worry. I'm about to peace out." So it's the end of the movie. Everybody's sad, because they're dead. And she's at a comic book store, and this guy's talking about a comic, and he's like, "Yeah, the mastermind always has a backup plan. It's never over when you think it's over." And so Sarah Paulson character hears that, and she goes back to the hospital. And because all the footage that they had, they deleted, they wiped all of that, so no one knows that this happened. So when she goes back, she's like, all the footage was deleted. And the guy's like, yeah. She's like, was it downloaded before it was deleted? And he looks, and there was this code that was there, because before the fight happened, Mr. Glass had typed up some code, and basically he was streaming the security footage the whole time. And she realizes when she mentioned all the security cameras to keep a watch on them, he was using those cameras to watch everything. The reason he left from the basement was because that's where most of the security cameras was, because he wanted all of the footage to be recorded and had the evidence that they exist. Because his plan wasn't really to go to the building to have a fight and cause he was going to make a bomb and kill all the people. It was really just to get a big battle to happen there and record it and then release it if he died or if he didn't. And he did, and he had a backup plan where he sends the video to his mom, the girl Casey, and David's son, and then at the end they post the video on social media, and then it takes some time for then now the world knows as a whole that superpower people exist. And I thought that was a really cool ending. Some people, I guess, didn't like the twist that there was some secret agency, secret society that was been keeping superpower people on lock the whole time, but I thought that was cool, and it makes me intrigued to see more of this universe, either a sequel or even a prequel where it's like them in the 70s, or them in the, them during World War II, them during the anywhere, them in, like, what is the, I don't think they dropped the name for this group. I don't know if they did or not, but they all had the 3 clover tattoos on their wrists. And I just thought that was a really cool twist. Also, the little thing with Kevin's dad being on the train. That was really, really cool stuff. And some of the shots, there was a shot when the Beast is banging on the police shield, and like the guy's underneath the police shield, and like he's like clawing at him. Then he like slams the guy's head on the police shield. There was great cinematography in this. Great action. David being a hero, where after he stops the Beast, he helps those ladies from out of that van, and he like tells them to run in the building. He pushes the cops out of the way. Good stuff. Really, really good. A really solid superhero movie, and something that's new, something that's fresh. This is what the superhero genre needs. It needs more movies like this to keep it fresh and to keep new ideas coming out there before it gets stale and eventually fades away. So, like I said, I like this movie. The more I think, like I said, 9 out of 10. I feel pretty good about that. And it's definitely worth checking out. It's a really good movie. Anything else? That's about it. So if you liked the movie, let me know in the comments. If you hated the movie, let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Check out other videos on this channel. And stay tuned for more videos. Thanks for watching. Peace.
Finish this thought. I am a slave to
the booty.